Good day. My name is Marlena Rogers, and I'm going to be comparing and contrasting informed consent as it relates to the recommendations of the ACA Code of Ethics, the North Carolina Board of Licensed Professional Counselors, and a professional counseling informed consent form from Lisa Carter, MA, NCC, LPC, LCAS, with Inner Light Counseling. Informed consent is sort of a rules of engagement to counseling. This extensive list allows the individual to access important information about the process of counseling. In review of the three documents that I observed, I became aware of the intent of informed consent, and that is to ensure that clients are knowledgeable about the service or treatment process that they are experiencing with the counselor, and for the counselor providing the service to inform them of their education, credentials, areas of expertise, their clinical supervisor's information, confidentiality, service fees, insurance reimbursement, and procedure for making formal complaints. I believe that all of these areas are important to inform your client. Many people have heard about counseling and are often encouraged to participate in counseling, either voluntarily or involuntary. It is not uncommon for the individual to have no experience in the counseling process and have no knowledge of what to expect or what their rights are. In Chapter 53 of the Board of Licensed Professional Counselors, Section 21, NCAC 53.0204, Professional Disclosure Statement Requirements for LPCA and LPC, provides a general outline of disclosure requirements. Counselors must provide, prior to any services being rendered, this list of brief and general rules of engagement. This list does not speak to the detailed nature of the services performed in counseling. What is included in the information about the process of counseling is who's counseling them, the counselor's credentials, education and experience, confidentiality, exceptions to confidentiality, how much to expect to pay, how they can make payments, and what to do if they're not satisfied. In 1970, Northwestern University School of Law produced the Northwestern University Law Review, and entitled Informed Consent to Therapy, John R. Waltz and Thomas W. Scheuneman wrote, consent must be effective, and it must stem from understanding the decision based on adequate information about therapy and the available alternatives and collateral risk. And what they basically alluding to is that informed consent can only occur if the individual is completely informed about what they are getting ready to do and what the consequences are and what their rights are during that time. The 2014 Counselor Association Section 8.2 does a thorough job of detailing the levels of informed consent that must be communicated both verbally and written prior to treatment. The ACA also states informed consent must include the following items, and it must occur as an ongoing process. The ACA Code of Ethics include the freedom to choose your provider and whether or not to remain in the counseling relationship, adequate information about the counseling process and the counselor, including the educational and experience of the counselor and their supervisor, that counselors use clear and understandable language, that counselors need to recognize the client's ability to make their choices and their capacity to give consent or revoke consent, and that ensure that a guardian gives consent or revokes consent when appropriate. Discuss required limitations to confidentiality when working with clients who have been mandated for counseling services, including what type of information can be shared prior to the beginning of counseling. And also, the counselor is required to discuss potential consequences if the client refuses services. The professional counseling informed consent form obtained from Lisa Carter, MA, NCC, LPC, and LCAS with Inner Light Counseling was exceptional. What I appreciated most about the consent was that it was well written in layman's language. The consent was clear and specific, taking great care to clarify confidentiality, for example. Not to assume that the client understands what confidentiality entails, the counselor writes, I cannot and will not tell anyone else what you have told me, or even that you're in therapy with me without your prior written permission. Because of this, I will always act to protect your privacy, even if you do release me in writing to share your information about you, end quote. The counsel also carefully outlines exceptions to the confidentiality. Quote, the following legal exceptions to your right of confidentiality. If any time I believe you will have put these into effect, I will inform you before I do so. Those exceptions, as we know, include harm to self or harm to others, for example. And finally, the counsel informs the client about the methods of communication that are not confidential, such as emails that are not encrypted and text messages. The counselor informs the client on the limitations of those communication methods and what will be communicated if those methods of communication are used. The counselor did a fantastic job of following the ACA Code of Ethics requirements regarding informed consent with the client. Thank you and have a great day.